recording.
Lovely. Okay, so good evening, councillors, members of the public. I'm Councillor Richard Davis, and I'm the chair of this committee, which is the Housing, Neighbourhoods and Leisure Committee. So welcome to the meeting. As you will know, it's because you're not in the civic. It's being held as an online meeting. With social distancing still in place, councillors are meeting on video instead, as become normal practice now, unfortunately. So this is the first meeting of the HNL Committee since the Coronavirus Act 2020, and that allowed local authority committees to be held online, attended remotely by members and officers. The public and press are welcome to join and see and hear what's going on in the meeting. The meeting's being recorded, and it will be available on the council's website for repeat viewing later. The agenda papers have been published on the council's website and on the Modern Gov app for councillors. These papers, and hopefully all the members will have read them thoroughly, because they always do. I'll ask the members individually at the end of the debate on the reports to state if they're for, if they're against, or they wish to abstain from the recommended action in the report, as whatever that is, as we go along. And that's the way we'll sort of indicate assent or otherwise to take the report forward and to agree to it. So I'll shortly ask the members to introduce themselves for the benefit of the public, and also to assure that they're all here, so I can make a note who's attended as expected, and also to make sure they can see and hear the meeting, etc. Could I remind members and officers to please put your microphones on mute when you're not speaking, and of course when you are called to speak, please unmute your microphone. Obviously that's the big bugbear in 2020, that it's talking when people are still on mute, and give a little bit of time after it's unmuted before you start speaking, just to make sure that that we can hear you. You must please remember to switch your camera on if you're going to speak as well. We would like to see you, like to see who you are as you're speaking. Of course, we're at the mercy of broadband services in people's homes, and it is possible that the loss of connection might happen, including to me. But as long as we still have 3 members in the meeting, we'll still be quorate, and hopefully they won't all drop at the same time. I think that's very unlikely, so fingers crossed on that. Now I'm going to call the other members of the committee alphabetically to please speak your name slowly and clearly, and please put your microphone on, off mute, so on, and put your camera on when you're about to speak. So start off with Councillor Barnett-Ward.
Hello, I'm Adele Barnett-Ward, Caversham Ward Councillor and lead member for Neighbourhoods and Communities.
Councillor Ennis.
Hello, Councillor John Ennis, Southcote Ward Councillor and also lead councillor for housing. Thank you.
Councillor Hoskin.
Hello, hi, I'm Councillor Graham Hoskin. I'm lead councillor for health, wellbeing and sport. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Magnani. Oh, sorry.
Just reminded her to join.
Okay, Councillor Lovelock. I got the order wrong there slightly. Councillor Lovelock.
Yeah, I'm Jo Lovelock. I'm councillor for Norfolk Ward and also vice chair of this committee, should your internet fail, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I'll make it in some other indication. Maybe I'll send you a text if my broadband's dropped. So Councillor Magnani, you say that she's going to she's in the process of dialing in, so we'll come back to her. Councillor McGonigal.
Again, I have just requested that she join, so she should be here any moment.
So, Councillor O'Connell.
She's the other person that I've asked to join this meeting as well.
Oh, right, okay.
They've all been invited.
Okay, and Councillor Rowland.
Yes, hello, Chair. My name is Karen Rowland. I'm a councillor in Abbey Ward, and I am the lead member for Culture, Heritage and Recreation. Thank you.
And please, have we got Councillor Roysing?
Yes, Andy.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you for all those councillors who've attended, and welcome to the committee. So next, I'm going to introduce the officers who are in attendance tonight. Hopefully, they will all be here. I'll introduce you, and I'll let them. In fact, I think, am I going to say who they are? Yes, I think I am. So
Yes.
we won't go over to them if they don't want to speak, but I'll just tell you who they are. They are Francis Martin, who's the Executive Director for Economic Growth and Neighbourhood Services. Giorgio Framelico, who's the Deputy Director of Planning, Transport and Regulatory Services. Zelda Wolfley, who's the Assistant Director of Housing and Communities. James Crosby is the Acting Head of Planning and Regulatory Services. Donna Pentelow is the Assistant Director for Culture. Christelle Beaupou is the Performance and Special Projects Manager. Andrew Edwards is the Assistant Director for Environmental and Commercial Services. Yasmin Ahmad is the Private Sector Housing Team Manager, and we've already heard from Julie Quarmby, who's from Committee Services, and she's hopefully running the back office stuff for this meeting. She'll be able to advise on procedures, and she's also taking the minutes.
Yes. Can I just say, this is just a regular team meeting, so members of the public are actually in this meeting. It's not like a live event where they can only observe. So you may want to remind them to make sure that they are only observing, apart from people presenting questions or petitions, and that they should have their microphones off and their cameras off where possible. Yeah,
I hope you got that, members of the public. Julie will mute you if you don't follow the rules. Okay, so let's start with item 1, declarations of interest. So I haven't been notified of any interests, but I now invite any members who have any interest they want to declare to please declare them. Oh, I should mention that I think we'll be taking indications from to speak from the chat. Unless anyone has got any objections to that, I would rather use the hand raise thing. I think the chat is more helpful to the chair because we can see what order the request to speak came in on. If that's okay. So no one seems to be objecting to that. So moving on. So item 1, we've done declarations of interest and I didn't have any. Number 2, minutes of the previous meeting. Yes, Julie, you could perhaps can get back to that person in the chat. The minutes of the previous meeting, they're in the report. If anyone has any objections, please now speak, or if you think there's any matters arising that we should be dealt with, please now speak, councillors. Okay, so we've got nothing there. Item 3 is minutes of other bodies. So the minutes of the Community Safety Partnership are included in the papers. Can I accept that into the minutes, please? If anyone objects to that, please let me know. Otherwise, we'll include those into the record. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Item 4. Item 4 is petitions, and we do have a petition for this meeting. Petition is from Mr. Stocking Williams. I'm going to welcome you to this meeting. Can you please press *6 to unmute yourself and then present your petition and say a few words about it, tell us what it is. When you're ready, you'll have 3 minutes to speak to the committee on the topic of your petition, and then I'll invite one of the councillors to respond.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mr.
Hello. Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everybody. Hope you're having a good evening. Yeah, I'm just thinking. I'm a resident of Amity Road, and it's regarding the trade waste bins at the far end of Amity Road near the London Road. They're quite often overflowing with rubbish stuck down the side of them, which has also increased the amount of fly tipping at that end. I think it seems to encourage it. I mean, we're in an area that has a tremendous problem with fly tipping anyway, and also with rats as well. So, and I think the trade waste being dumped there. I was reading a report that there has been penalty notices handing out to some of the businesses over it, but obviously I walked past there about an hour ago, and there was rubbish on the floor with food rubbish, obviously from takeaways, large oil drums. So yeah, it's just the impact. I think, especially with things as they are. I think the amount of vermin and fly tip in this area. I think having the trade bins there just encourages it, and it seems if the local businesses aren't really paying much attention to any signs or to the penalty notices, because it's obviously an ongoing thing. So I was just wondering what could be done about this. Thank you.
So let's just have a look what your petition actually asks the council to do before I invite Councillor Barnett Ward. No, Councillor Rowland. Sorry.
No, Barnett Ward.
Councillor Barnett Ward. Sorry, it's to respond. Let's just see. Won't be a second. So, well, thanks for your for the petition anyway, and thank you for speaking in this sort of circumstance. Yeah, Councillor Barnett Ward, do you want to come in?
Thank you, and thank you for the question and for the petition. The council takes every report it receives about littering and fly tipping seriously and is committed to reducing the incidence of environmental crime and taking robust enforcement action against those who blight local communities in this way. This is clearly demonstrated by the creation of the recycling and enforcement team, who, despite COVID restrictions, have issued over 350 fixed penalty notices for dumped waste and secured 17 successful prosecutions since its formation in November 2019. Officers from the team monitor the area around the Amity Road trade waste bins on a regular basis. So far, 7 fixed penalty notices have been issued to those who we found to be responsible for fly tipping in the area. Officers have also been in regular contact with the businesses to remind them of their legal duty of care to manage their waste responsibly, to ensure that they're aware that all waste must be contained within the bins, and that any waste that's found around the bins will be investigated as fly tipping. To try and deter fly tippers, no fly tipping signs which display the maximum penalty for such offences have been put up, and further information signs are currently being designed which will reinforce the message. The location and layout of the properties and the space available limits the options for storing these trade waste bins, which have been in situ for several years. There are many factors that have been considered regarding siting the bins elsewhere, including the fact that many shops are food premises, so a sack collection would not be appropriate for these businesses. Some businesses do not have rear access, which means they don't have any land to place the bins on. The current use of private land to the rear of the shops, including the alleyway and the condition of the surfaces and their suitability for collection crews to move heavy 1,100 litre bins over safely. Collections from flats and residential properties, the proximity of businesses to the highway on London Road. As a result of your petition, officers will carry out further work to try and identify alternative siting options, which will need to be practical for the businesses as well as for the local community. We hope to complete the further assessment and contact the lead petitioner, which is yourself, by the end of January.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barnett Ward, and thank you for your petition, Mr. Stocking Williams. So the committee, we are accepting the petition. We're thanking you for it. And as Councillor Barnett Ward said, we will get back to you with the results. So,
that's wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
So, right. So now we're moving on to item 5. And that's questions from
Councillor Davis. It's Julie Quarmby. The gentleman, Mr. Johnson, who submitted the question, hasn't contacted me to say that he is attending the meeting. So you don't need to read that question out. You can just go straight on to the next question. But I think we're having trouble getting Councillor McGonigal in.
Yeah.
I've sent her different links to try and get into the meeting.
Could someone ask it on her behalf? I wonder.
One of the other councillors, if they would like to volunteer.
Want to do that? Or do we have any volunteers?
I have sent the text of the question to councillors, so they have got it.
Okay. I think basically that's it. If she can't, if Councillor McGonigal can't get in, it's a bit of a shame in that the officers have worked on an answer for this. I am inclined to just read it myself because I think
that would be fine. Yes.
Yeah. So given the fact that it's not like Councillor McGonigal hasn't attended, she is trying to get into the meeting, isn't she?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
I think I will ask on her behalf. So the question is from Councillor McGonigal. Bird feeding Kennetside. On Kennetside between Kennet Mouth and the Jolly Anglers is a favourite spot for people to feed the plethora of birds in the area, and that's a nice word to use in a question. While this is admirable in many ways, it also is creating some unpleasant side effects, including the wrong kind of food, empty plastic bags blowing into the river from overflowing bins, and food left on the ground which encourages rats. They have increased in number. It is felt by many that some permanent signage stating what birds can be seen in this location and what they can and cannot be fed, and some basic do's and don'ts regarding environmental health would be very welcome by residents and the many passers-by in the area. Is this something the council could consider arranging? So that is the question. Now, if that had been asked by Councillor McGonigal, then I would invite Councillor Rowland on my behalf to respond, so I will do that. Councillor Rowland, do you want to respond to that question?
Sure. Thank you, Chair.
Rather convoluted, and a bit meta, but please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for impersonating Councillor McGonigal so we could ask this question this evening. Good job. So I would like to thank Councillor McGonigal for the question and for raising this matter, which crosses not only the boundary of my ward, Abbey Ward, but also Park Ward, and in fact, Wokingham Borough Council in the location she's talking about. Her question does, however, highlight an issue that is not only evident along Kennetside, but occurs across the borough, where residents with the best intentions are feeding birds and other wildlife along our waterways. I acknowledge in certain locations it can be a pernicious issue and one that needs to be addressed. People choose to try to feed birds and wildlife for all sorts of reasons, sometimes out of a genuine goodwill towards wildlife, and sometimes these offerings are the manifestation of religious practice too, all of which we need to be very sensitive to and mindful of. Sadly, the wrong sorts of food being consumed by birds and wildlife can be of particular harm, noting, for example, that white bread can be a particular issue for waterfowl, causing a condition called angel wing, leaving the bird unable to fly as a result. Furthermore, despite the various best intentions of residents, there are the obvious added side effects of attracting rats and vermin and the additional litter that the council's street cleansing teams then need to deal with. Specifically, with regards to the litter along Reading Borough Council portion of the Kennet Mouth, I can confirm that the litter bins are emptied 3 times a week along Kennetside, and our street care cleansing team believe that this frequency is adequate at this point in time. However, the team will monitor the area more closely, and should an additional litter bin or additional emptying be required, they will action this accordingly. With regard to the requested information sign, I wish to be clear that whilst this is not a regulatory enforceable sign on the public highway, I concur with Councillor McGonigal that signage could be a benefit in this area and others in protection of wildlife and birds in several areas around the borough. Therefore, I can assure her that I will prioritize looking into the development of appropriate signage that can provide helpful guidance for those that may wish to feed birds and wildlife, and to look to place that signage along Kennett's side and around the borough as needed. In addition to the new signage, I will ensure that the council will look into using our available social media platforms to get the message out. Okay, that could be her. I don't know. And to encourage.
It is.
Oh, okay. Okay. And to encourage residents and volunteer groups to become involved with spreading the word, monitoring the area, and taking a more proactive role in dealing with the issue. I trust this answered Councillor McGonigal's query, and I'm also more than happy to write a letter to Wokingham Borough Council to ensure that they also engage similarly in the area around the Kennet mouth. I concur that we need to do more to ensure that residents with oftentimes the best of intentions to use their common sense to feed wildlife with appropriate foodstuffs and to dispose of litter responsibly. I would like to encourage local residents and groups that are noting similar issues in their areas to make contact with the council so that we can work together to improve the situation for wildlife, not only along Kennett's side, but throughout the borough. Again, I thank Councillor McGonigal for her question.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Councillor Rowland, for that comprehensive answer. I believe that Councillor McGonigal has now joined the meeting, which is great because I was not looking forward to asking myself if I had a supplementary to her question. But I will ask her, in fact. Do you, Councillor McGonigal, have a supplementary to your question?
No, I don't. Thank you. Thanks for reading it out.
No problem at all.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of the question section of the meeting. Item 6 is decision book references. We don't have any decision book references. So we're now on to reports. Item 7 is the Reading 2021 Anniversary Plans report, and it's to advise the committee of our plans to mark 2021, which is a year full of culturally significant anniversaries in Reading. Donna Pentelow, Assistant Director of Culture, could you please present the report?
Thank you, Chair. And the report you have in front of you invites the committee to note the plans to mark 2021, which, as you've introduced helpfully, is a year of significant cultural anniversaries for Reading. Some of which include the 900th anniversary of the founding of Reading Abbey, 150 years of Reading Football Club, 70 years of the Museum of English Rural Life, and 50 years of Reading Festival. A small working group has been working for almost a year now, putting together a calendar of events. As you can imagine, COVID-19 has profoundly impacted on organisations' ability to plan ahead and to unfortunately plan for 2021 activities as well. So the plans and proposals in front of you remain agile and will need to remain flexible as the COVID-19 situation changes. Some of the highlights that I'd like to draw the committee's attention to include the Abbey 900 anniversary and Waterfest, which will take place on Saturday the 19th of June. This event will build on the very successful reopening of the Abbey events that took place a couple of years ago, whilst being extremely mindful of the fact that this will take place one day before the first anniversary of the very tragic events that took place in Forbury Gardens this year when 3 men lost their lives. All of the event planning that will go into the delivery of this event will have front and centre the first anniversary within our minds as we go through that planning. There will be an exhibition in partnership with Reading Museum and Museum of English Rural Life on 1971, which will be a historic photography exhibition of Reading Festival. And the Museum of English Rural Life will also be running a digital project called 51 Voices, which will draw on their collections from 1951 and also the Festival of Britain. Berkshire Record Office will be running an online exhibition of the Thames, celebrating 250 years of the Thames Conservancy. And we are planning a blend of both live and digital events using Reading Culture Live as the predominant digital platform for this. So whilst COVID-19 has required us to rethink quite significantly our plans compared to where we were this time last year, what I do think we have in front of us today is a calendar of activities that will still celebrate 2021 and those culturally significant anniversaries for Reading. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Donna Pentelow, for that. I know that the anniversary year had been long planned and long considered, and even though it's a bit of a shame, it is a shame. It's not the worst thing as of COVID by any means, but it is a shame that that it will be affected by this. But I trust that you know, we'll make the best of whatever we can, and we'll have a great year celebrating Reading's cultural anniversaries. Can I bring in Councillor Rowland to speak on this?
Sure, thank you, Chair. And I would like to thank the officer for her report. Yes, indeed. I mean, next year is to be a very exciting year, and the situation with COVID-19 has certainly dealt a blow to many of the possible outdoor plans and things like that were scheduled for the year. But if one thing I can promise everyone, that this is a team that has done miracles, as you might see, along with Reading UK, out of 2 light bulbs with the wonderful Twilight Trail that we're all currently enjoying. So I can assure you that this is a team that will not be beaten down by anything that gets in their way. So I appreciate the report. I thank officers for coming forward with that and helping us really to set the stage for what will be happening in 2021, being mindful of the first year since the event in Forbury Gardens and framing events appropriately and sensitively around that. There's still a lot of things to look forward to, and I do hope that members will agree the recommended actions to this report, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Rowland. Does anyone else want to say anything on this? I haven't had anything in the chat, but if not, can we agree the recommended action? I think I have to ask individually councillors if they agree to it. So can I ask them all if they agree to it in alphabetical order? Councillor Barnett-Ward.
If there's, sorry, can I just interrupt? It's Julie Formby. If there's general agreement, then you don't actually need to ask everybody. So it's only if people say no.
I mean, generally we never have votes really in this committee.
No, it's only for.
We're all very civilised. So if anyone wants to dissent from approving the recommended action, please speak.
Read.
Or put a note in the chat. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, that's it. No further actions. So no further comments. So what's the next item? Let me find where I am in here. Next item is item 8, High Street Heritage Action Zone Programme. So this report is inviting the committee to just note the High Street Heritage Action Zone, which is HSHAZ. The programme aims and objectives and the plans to deliver the HSHAZ programme over the next 4 years. The main activities and key milestones over the next 6 months. So Christelle Beaupuy, I now invite you to, who's the project manager, please will you present this report?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to apologise first. My camera is not working, so I will have to do it only by audio, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So yes, the report is an update on the progress of the programme since the official launch of the national scheme in September 2020, and to cover the next steps and the milestone of the programme for the next 6 months. A few highlights I would like to the committee to note is the culture pilot activity alongside of Oxford Road. We have been granted by Historic England. So it's around £9,000, and we have started to work on the cultural program activity with the community. We have done a leaflet for the local residents to ask them to share their story, their memory, their images, anything they would like to share from their local area. So the artists could create an artwork on the street for next year. Everyone who will be sharing their memory will be also entering a prize draw or chance to win local vouchers for local shops and businesses. So if you're interested, please go on the local on the website of the High Street Heritage Action Zone project. The story will be collected, will inspire artists, as I said, and we are creating an artist brief, and a call out will be done just before Christmas, and will be run until the 18th of January for artists, local artists, to draw artist intervention with the Oxford Road, and they will have a budget to work on street artwork, performance-based artwork, artistic COVID public safety message, and things like that. So we hope to get a fantastic group of artists working on it. The other highlight I would like to mention is the conservation strand of the project. The project is progressing well. We are working with specialists, conservation specialists, owners of the shopfront and the listed building and other selected building for feasibility studies and to evaluate their condition and the need for basic repair and restorations. We could grant some of the money for restoration. So this is going to happen. This feasibility study is going to happen in January and onward. If you'd like to get involved with the project, this 3.5 years project, we are also offering volunteering opportunities. So there will be opportunities for people to get involved. So please have a look at our website again, and it will be some opportunities there in the new year. Cultural program application. One of the strands is the cultural approach, which should be complementing the conservation strands. And we are in a process of applying for a cultural program grants of just under £100,000 to Historic England again. And we hope to get, if we're successful, we hope to be able to start the project in March 2021, just when the cultural pilot grant is finishing. So we could use the best knowledge and feedback from the community and the good guidance and good practice from this pilot to implement cultural program over the next 3.5 years, and hoping to engage with the community and the partners to make sure they lead on those cultural activities within those 3 conservation areas. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crystal, on that. That's the heritage aspect of that is something I'm particularly interested in. Part of the being a member of the Conservation Advisory Committee, Conservation Area Advisory Committee. So I know that conservation heritage is something very much that Councillor Rowland is passionate about. So I invite Councillor Rowland. Do you want to speak on this?
Thank you, Chair. I would love to. I take only a little bit of offense that you've renamed it the HSHAS, but we'll get over that. I personally call it the HS-HAS, but I suppose everyone can choose their own. So I would like to thank Christelle Beaupeau for her introduction for this and for leading the program so very well so far. And it's obviously a program that I'm very passionate about as lead for heritage, and something that I'm really looking forward to materializing over the next 3.5 years. We're very, very fortunate. We were one of 68 areas that were chosen across the country for this program. And it really has come along at just the right time for us, because as we begin to see the end of the tunnel with COVID-19 and we start into recovery phase, we've got our radial high streets, which these the high streets will be working in along the Oxford Road, the Marketplace, Castle Street, and those areas. They will actually need our support, and this is positive heritage regeneration, which basically takes what we've got right in front of our eyes and paving the way for the future. So it's really come along at a really great opportunity and a really great time to help and support businesses along those routes. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'd also like to draw members and the public's attention to the fact that through the High Streets Heritage Action Zone program, Reading Borough Council has actually been able to bring on conservation officers for the first time, full-time, in any number of years, certainly in the number of years that I've even been in Reading. So we have now a full-time conservation urban design officer, as well as a conservation officer specific just to this, the High Streets has. So it's been really, really positive for the town in terms of heritage, and I'm looking forward with great excitement to what's going to happen for heritage going forward in the years to come, and certainly through this program. Christelle was very right to point out that the community and the cultural aspects all feed into the success of amplifying our heritage and amplifying what's so great and wonderful about these high streets. Living just off the Oxford Road as I do, I am waiting with eager anticipation for what's going to be going on there, as well as through the rest of the town. So I would like to commend colleagues this evening to accept the recommended actions on this report, and hopefully along with me look forward to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. People in Reading, as far as I can see, are passionate about heritage in their town centre. There's a tremendous amount, and there's the fact that there's a lot of development gone on in Reading over the last few decades has meant even more that the heritage that there is in there, that is left, is particularly valued, and I think this is a really good step to restoring some of it to where it should be. So thank you. I've got Councillor Singh who wants to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Christelle, for the report. It's just this funding is part of the 95 million pounds boost from the central government. One of the objectives I've seen is also to identify traditional businesses and help them to compete with the online setup. I don't know whether there's been traditional businesses has been identified currently, or it is there on the roadmap in next 2 to 3 years. Also to identify some of the historic buildings in Reading and see how that can be utilized for the community or for events and things like that. So yeah, so if Christelle can put some light on that, that would be really helpful. If not, I'm happy to follow up in an email if she doesn't have those data top of her head.
Okay, thanks, Councillor. Have you got your light off in your house and you're wearing all black? Because
is it now? Is it better?
Yeah, that's better. That's it.
Better. Oh.
No worries. That's fine. Councillor Rowan, would you like to come back on that, or would you like Christelle Beaupuy to come back? Was there anything you want to say in response? We don't have to.
I'm happy for Christelle to answer, but I'd also like to add in a few words too, if I could. But Christelle, if you'd like to go ahead and say a few things, and then I'll pop in.
Christelle?
And thank you. At this stage, we are looking at selected building based on our original application in February, but we are refining the feasibility study and looking at which area and which building needs most repair. And we are looking also to see in terms of the shop front, which is mainly within Oxford Road area, we're looking at this stage. But while we will have the determined list, we will contact the owner and the tenant to make sure then, yes, it will be some opportunity for them to bid for the ground, some ground. Those will be small grounds, no more than £25,000 per shop front. So it is to be realistic within what it could be done, but it will still be quite. It's just the front of the building. We're not going to enter any buildings. it's a repair. The grants are only for external repairs.
Okay, thank you, Christelle. Councillor Rowland, do you want to come in?
Right. Thanks, Chair. And I wanted to thank Councillor Singh for his question too. You know, this has raised a lot of excitement. What Councillor Singh is pointing to is a lot of discussions on a national level about high streets and about the way that we're taking care of those businesses and that challenge with digital. I attend a lot of national webinars about this because it is an object of great discussion. People are declaring the demise of the high street, and they're saying that, you know, it's all over. So when you've got heritage, and when you've got heritage within a high street, you can actually draw on that to regenerate and to future proof, which is what I was saying before. So you are also very spot on with drawing that out. And through the HAS, which is actually somewhat an evolutionary process, obviously officers have certain parameters they have to meet. This also draws in funding from other situations too. So that's something that Christelle was talking about too. But there's a lot of opportunities for good ideas like you're talking about to be part of this program over the next 3.5 years. So thank you very much for your question. And like you, I'm very eager to see what happens.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Does any other councillors have anything to say on this report before we move to hopefully approve the recommended action? Okay, let's do that then. Is anyone dissenting from agreeing the recommended action? Okay, thank you. We'll just note that report then. Thanks very much for Crystal Bopu and Councillor Rowland for that. Moving on to item 9. Item 9 is the allotments consultation and the next steps following that. The report summarises the results of the consultation we did on allotments and recommends next steps and proposals for future strategy for the management and maintenance of the allotment service. Now, I understand from Andy Edwards that actually Dave Moore's going to answer, talk about this report. Is he on the line, on the call, hopefully?
I am, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, would you like to introduce the report then?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report updates the committee on the current review of the allotment management and charging model to achieve the agreed budget saving of 26k, on the results of the recent tenants consultation, the proposed immediate next steps and proposals for a more comprehensive strategy for maintenance and management going forward. The results of the tenants consultation shown in section 5 of the report and the total of 452 responses and contacts resulted in the consultation report shown in Appendix A. Section 5.5 of the report summarises the main responses to the following issues: the self-management of sites, tenant maintenance of sites and alternatives to rubbish removal. The Council's proposed response to the consultation is summarised in section 6 of the report and in the action plan in section 6.3. It includes work which is currently ongoing to clear unkempt plots and carry out the backlog of maintenance work which has resulted from the interruption of work caused by the COVID-19 outbreak earlier in the year. Working with plot holders on 7 sites towards greater involvement in site management and the production of an allotment plan setting out the Council's longer-term objectives for the allotment service. The recommended actions are that members note the reports and the findings of the consultation of tenants, that the committee endorse the next steps as shown in section 6 of the report, that an updated allotments plan is created, is subject to public consultation and is reported for approval to a future committee, and that an annual allotment plan progress report is brought to HNL Committee at its autumn meeting in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. Councillor Rowland, can I bring you in? Talk about allotments.
Right. Thank you, Chair. And I would like to thank Dave Moore for his report, and indeed all of the officers that have put in time this year to gathering a good amount of research and information and understanding from allotment holders in the town about how we can take the program forward in a better way that is a real benefit to the allotment holders. Unfortunately, we did not get we had a question earlier about allotments, and there are a number of issues that plague allotments that we're looking to address. I'd like to thank and single out an officer by the name of Nick Pritchard Gordon, who actually during the months of August and September went out and hit every allotment site and spoke with many of the allotment owners and listened really, really well, and put a very long report that you will find in the document here that talks about the positives, talks about ideas, talks about some of the negatives too, that the situation has been plagued with. As Dave Moore pointed out, we've got a 26K savings that needs to be made to our allotment strategy and to our allotment offerings. But if that is to come in terms of an increase in fees and things like that, we are committed to not doing that until we also play our part in offering an allotment service that the residents can be happy with. On several levels, that also means increasing and improving the overturn and the amount of people that can come on site. A lot of people sit there in frustrations. It's kind of part of the allotment world to get on a waiting list. And some people have been on waiting list too long. So that is something that we are very eager to remedy, and to get allotment sites where they are able to be turned over quickly, and for us to be able to offer those out. To offer those out, it will also come with something that we're looking to instill amongst allotment holders that are eager to work with us, at least that we found on 7 sites, in a kind of coordinated self-management program. So they will also be our eyes and ears in the allotment area and help us to better manage the sites. And that has worked. That's a program that has worked well all over the country, and something that we're eager to engage with, because we do want to provide an allotment service that people will really, really enjoy and benefit from. This certainly plays into our climate strategy, and it really answers the need for healthier lifestyles, the need for eating local produce and enjoying local produce and all of that. So I'm very pleased with the amount of information that we've been able to accumulate, the officers have been able to accumulate. And you'll see on, I believe it's pages 39 to 41, a schedule of works that we've set out, along with a schedule of dates that we intend to hit to bring the allotment offering up to snuff over the course of the next year. So again, I commend officers on all of their hard work. We were down an officer most of the year, which didn't make it any easier, combining all of that with COVID-19 and everything to get this up and running. But we've now got the information. We are communicating regularly with allotment holders, and we look forward to taking the next steps as outlined in pages 39 to 41. So thank you very much, and I would like to commend colleagues to take the actions that are recommended this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. Yeah, it's a very comprehensive consultation that's taken place. People in an urban area, particularly like Reading, allotments are incredibly important to a lot of people. So it's great that we're coming out with a new strategy. Councillor Lovelock wants to come in on this.
Thank you, Chair. And can I echo at the start Councillor Rowland's thanks to Nick Pritchard Gordon, who has worked so hard on this consultation. I know it was appreciated by the people he went and spoke to, sometimes out of hours and on a Sunday and so on. So thank you, Nick, for that. This is, I think we all know, a long overdue review. We need to improve the service, as you've said, and make sure that what we're offering, before we think about how much we should charge, is actually an offering that people respond to and believe that we're managing as efficiently as we can. And where there are people wanting to work with us, in self-management. That's great as well. But I think one of the things that puts people off is if a plot is completely overgrown, often lots of brambles, all that sort of thing. It's pretty daunting to get it into a state where you can actually plant your first potato. And I know that there's officers are looking at how we can ensure that plots are in a state to be taken over, and if we can turn that round more quickly so that we get our people on site as quickly as possible who are on the waiting list, that would be great. So thank you, and we look forward to it. I'm glad we're going to monitor it as well. It'll be good to see whether we've got the occupancy rate up over the next few months by this more intensive programme of working with the local allotment holders. So yeah, look forward to that as well. And it's so important at the moment and into the future that the people who've got into the habit of gardening, planting their own vegetables and fruit and so on, continue to do that as a healthier way of life, but also in the post-COVID world that we hope we're looking forward to. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Logan. Here. Absolutely right. Councillor Rowan, do you have anything to come back on before we move to the recommended actions, or are you okay?
Well, I'll just say very quickly, I thank Councillor Lovelock for her comments, and I do know that we've also got some allotment holders here that are in the public room this evening watching this. So it is something that we have now got a commitment to, and we've got a website going up so that we're going to be more transparent about the whole process and everything. And I think that we're turning a really positive page on this. So I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think it will be a very good improvement for allotments in the future, right when they're needed.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking at the recommended actions here. So yes, unless anyone else has anything they want to say about this item. No, can we agree the recommended actions then, please? They're listed in paragraph 2, 2.1 to 2.4, essentially noting the report and asking for a progress report to be brought to HNL in autumn next year. If anyone dissents from that, please let me know.
I won't say I agree to it.
No, you're not allowed to say that.
No, okay.
That's the default position. No, that's fine. Thank you.
You can say if you want to agree to it.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I think we're agreed on that, aren't we? Let's move on. Let's move on to the next item, which is wait 1 second. Item 10. This is on the rewilding and wildflower plan and increasing the biodiversity on our highways verges. So the report gives further details of the operational changes involved in the rewilding project, updates the committee on the results of the experiment, and the recommended next steps contained in the draft wildflower plan. Again, Andy Edwards has told me that Dave Moore is going to introduce this one. So can I ask Dave Moore to introduce the report, please?
So thank you, Chair. Rewilding involves reclaiming and protecting natural habitats and native species, and involves the encouragement of wildflowers to grow on areas of mown grass. It's principally aimed at dealing with two different aspects of the climate emergency: carbon sequestration and biodiversity. This report introduces the work which has been carried out this summer to rewild some of the larger highways verges, sets out the results of the experimental change in management operations, and the recommended next steps as shown in the wildflower plan, which is appended to the report. As set out in sections 4.4 and 4.5 of the report, and in the wildflower plan, the end of season review concluded that the phase 1 experiment had been a success, was overwhelmingly positive, and recommends that phase 2 of the rewilding project progresses in 2021. The recommended actions are as follows: that the committee note the report and the progress of the rewilding experimental project in 2020, The committee endorsed the recommendations of the Wildflower Plan as shown in section 4.2.4 of the report. That the Wildflower Plan is subject to public consultation and its adoption is then sought at a subsequent committee. And that an annual rewilding progress report is brought to HNL Committee at its autumn meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. More there. And Councillor, I won't say this, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's an extremely successful and popular experiment, and people will look forward to seeing what happens with it next year. The appearance of wildflowers in our verges around our town was something that lifted people's spirits during a frankly pretty rubbish part of last year in the depths of the first lockdown, and long may it continue. I'll bring in Councillor Rowland now, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, you took the words out of my mouth. There was not a whole lot of joy to be had in 2020, and we've still got a couple more weeks left to go. But the rewilding program and the rewilding trial was something that was actually quite a positive. For a councillor that sometimes you don't like to go on Twitter all the time, it was a pretty happy Twitter time for us. We got a lot of really positive comments. The comments that were sent in via the website were also very positive overall. And so it showed a real appetite that I know historically the town has not always had in terms of allowing verges to be rewilded. There are always a percentage of people that would prefer their verges just nice, neat and groomed, but we also have a climate emergency. And as Dave Moore pointed out very clearly, this answers to biodiversity and carbon sequestration and a lot of very important strategies within our climate emergency strategy that we have recently adopted. So this is really, really important for that. As an urban town center, we really need to be cautious and take care of every single blade of grass that we've got. Every little bit of open space really needs to work for us and to increase our biodiversity, which we've done with this program. The good news, I think, also, and you do have a verge by verge report, Chair, that I'm sure you would love to go through on about, let's see, 3 pages from page 72 to 75. A verge by verge blow of how this last year ran. Not every verge is actually able to be continued. Some verges didn't, they weren't producing, they weren't in the right area, they weren't able to be brought forward, but we've also added other verges to trial in 2020. So that's very good news too. So another thing that you may note is that also we might be changing the mowing regime, or we will be changing the mowing regime to trial something that was successful in Devon along the highway verges there, to where they actually do a cut and collect 3 times a year. So that's going to be a little bit different, and we'll want to ensure that the public is actually understanding of the fact that for a wildflower to grow, they don't need fertile soil. As a matter of fact, the more that soil is degraded, the less nutrients are in that soil, the happier the wildflowers are. I found that out myself because I wildflowered a little bit of my back garden this year, and I actually mixed sand in with the soil to kind of degrade the soil so that the wildflowers would be very, very happy, and I can assure you they were. So there's a few changes insofar as that. But the good news is also, off of comments that we received this year and encouragement, we're adding another 2 hectares to our conservation grassland by looking to wildflower or rewild some of the areas around the outsides of some of our larger parks in 11 of our parks. So that is really good news that we're going to be trialing that this year. This year, because of COVID-19 and because of lockdowns, we were very, very cautious about parks and kept them mowed and open so that people could exercise and benefit from being out in the open. But this year we will be trialing that in some of our parks. So it's a one-up a really great, successful program that we trialed this year. So I would urge again colleagues to accept the recommended action and to be sure and write in if you have any comments, or if you've got constituents that want to add or benefit differently, all that other stuff. It's still something that we can modify and look at in the future as we try to increase our biodiversity by rewilding our town. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Rowland. Councillor, thanks for that remark, Councillor Ennis. That's nice to know about that. And do you want to come in and say something? Oh, yes, sorry. You're muted.
I can do, if that's all right. Am I able to? I mean, I think we're an issue for us, because you're right, what you said. It's a great idea. I think in certain areas, definitely support it. You know, certain sections of our community do like, as I said, a nicely straight grass versions, and because they do look nice. But I think there is areas where we can certainly separate off, like I'm talking about Southcote. There are areas where wildlife has, so it's a mix and matching in our book, but it was good that we were able to identify those that had problems, and that was sorted. So thank you very much. Thanks for allowing me to speak, Chair.
Anytime, Councillor Ennis. Does anyone else want to speak before I ask Councillor Rowland just to come back on that? Okay, Councillor Rowland.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank Councillor Ennis for his remark. And I love the fact that he's being totally honest there, because there were comments that we did receive that some people wanted something more mowed and groomed and things like that. And I think part of the way that we dealt with that, and part of our intention this year, was we tried wherever possible to have a 2-meter swath of mown grass in front of a wildflower verge, and we had signage, and saw that bright, colorful signage that we had up around, so that it kind of gives a yes. The chat is kind of interesting this evening, but it so it kind of gives that groomed and then the kind of wild look that people enjoy. So it is a bit of a learning trial, but increasing our biodiversity in a town center and having those strands of wildlife corridors is going to be increasingly important. And so this initiative does that beautifully. And I do hope that colleagues will be happy to accept the recommendations this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. I think people will be looking forward to seeing what comes out in the spring. And I'm looking to forward to hearing people's views on it. So that's good. Unless um, 2.1 to 2.4, which is basically noting the report.
Agreed.
Not
Agreed.
You cut out there, Chair, for a minute.
I did. Okay, so I'm just asking if everyone wants to, anyone is dissenting from the recommended action, or they want to say that they do accept the recommended action, as Julie helpfully pointed out, we can do that as well.
Agreed.
So it's all getting a bit confusing, but I think we are noting the report happily. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much, Dave Moore. I think that's your last report. Or maybe no, it's not. You're on the next one as well. The next item is item 11, and it's about food waste and the 140-litre bin project, the early adopters, and an update on how the project's going. So this report updates on the progress of the curbside food waste collections in the 5 early adopter areas and on the main phase 1 rollout, planned for the 1st of February 2021. So I'll now ask Dave Moore again on behalf of Andy Edwards, just to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair, again. This report updates the committee on the progress of the curbside food waste collections and the 140-litre bin swap out project. in the 5 early adopter areas, which were introduced on the 5th of October. It also gives an update on progress towards the rollout of phase 1 of the main project from the 4th of January 21. The original project timetable was delayed by 5 months from October this year due to the disruptions to services caused by the COVID-19 virus. If you will indulge me, I'll run through a brief slide presentation, and then I will just go through some of the headlines of the early adopter project. So if you just bear with me, I will attempt to share my screen.
You know how to do this?
Hopefully it will work. Okay.
Oh, great. Yep. Good.
Okay. I hope everybody's seen that. So as I say, this is just a bit of a whistle-stop tour through the whole project. So if I just kick forward, this is the current curbside service. So we've got 240 litre grey bin, red bin, green bin, and the recycling box that we all know and love so well. The new service will include the 5 litre kitchen caddy, 3,300 of which are in circulation at the moment. The larger 23 litre curbside food waste bin, shown there with its in its locked mode with the handle forward. They sit outside or in a garage or a shed or wherever people want to put it, and then present it on the curbside. So the 140 litre grey bin replaces the 240s. And they will still work on the alternate weekly collection cycle with the 240 red bin shown below. We still have recycling boxes, and obviously green waste will continue as well. Just really reiterating the reasons why we're doing this. We need to increase our recycling rate from 35% towards 50 as quickly as possible. There's a lot of food waste in the existing bins. We know from the waste analysis that we do on a regular basis, there's still a lot of recycling material in those bins. From a financial point of view, it's significantly cheaper not to landfill things. And landfilling produces methane, which is clearly one of the most damaging greenhouse gases. So we want to reduce that down, and obviously we need to continue our work towards addressing the climate emergency. So those are the compelling reasons why we're doing this. Rather a busy slide. If I just bring you to the last 3 blobs, then they really talk about the main rollout. So the main rollout starts on the 4th of January. Where the food waste and bins and caddies start to be delivered to the 59,000 properties. They'll all be in place, fingers crossed, we don't get any bad weather or etc. By the 1st of February, by which time the food waste collections will start. We have all the trucks in place, we have the staff in place, and we're planning to start on the 1st of February. From that date, the 140 bin swaps will begin. They will work by each collection round will be swapped as they're collected. So the 240 litre bin will be emptied, a new 140 litre bin will be replaced, and that will take take us 8 weeks to do that. So we should have all the new collection rounds in place by then. Everything's been rescheduled, all the collection rounds have been rescheduled to take account of the changes in the size of the bins. So they will be starting on the 1st of February. Then there'll be the inevitable mop-ups and picking up, or delivering and picking up, swapping out bins that have been missed. And then we really go into phase 2, which is the high-rise flats and how we roll out food waste to them. So that's the planned timetable. Just a picky of one of our new bins, one of which is out there collecting trade waste and the early adopters waste as we speak. Communications, I won't go through this slide in detail, but it just gives you a list of all the various communications that we're undertaking and currently. And going forward into the main rollout, you may have seen some of the digital screen content, which is up and about, and there is some in the interior of bus screens at the moment. Interestingly, when we did some research with the early adopters residents about a month ago and asking them about the service and how they like their communications being delivered. And it was very interesting because I think we'd assumed a lot of people were getting their information digitally and through social media, but actually 100%, almost 100% of people said, no, we like it in paper form through our letterbox, please. So that was very interesting. So that's just a list of the communications. So I'll stop there if you don't mind. Now then, how do I get out of this?
Great. Well done. Okay, thanks very much. Thanks very much, then, Dave. That was really interesting. And you're saying there's going to be some new livery on the lorries to reflect on the wagons to reflect the collecting.
Yeah, the existing fleet, the 13 RCVs will have, I think 11 of them will have new livery, basically asking people to take the recycling out of the red bin, get it into the grey bin for us, and that would be really helpful. So that's another part of the communications. If I may, Chair, I'll just talk briefly about Appendix 2 to report, which I'm not going to share, but everybody should have a copy of, which is really it's one of the weekly updates that I send out to the members of the Task and Finish group of members who oversee the project. This is one which covers a period from the 5th of October to the 13th of November. And just a couple of things I'd like to highlight from there. Table 1 shows the food waste yield in kilograms per household per week that we've been getting from the 5 early adopter areas. Just to point out, our target food waste yield was 1 kilogram per household per week, and I think we've been slightly surprised, but it's over 2 kilograms per household per week, which is, am I going to say surprising? I think it's encouraging. I think it's something I'm not necessarily 100% certain will be continued everywhere and in perpetuity, because food waste does tend to drop off a little bit as services bed in, but we're very encouraged by that. But also the participation rates in Table 2 are very high, higher than we expected. So again, most food waste services do experience a drop off in participation after launch. So we'll see how that goes. But again, very interesting, and we're quite encouraged by that. So I'll stop there if that's okay.
Very much, Dave. Yeah, I think if there's a no deal Brexit, we'll all be eating our food waste. So that will solve that one. Councillor Barnett-Ward, do you want to come in and talk about this report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I want to thank Dave not only for the presentation, but also to commend the work of all the officers on this, because this is a massive undertaking at any time, but they are doing this in the middle of a pandemic, which I think is fantastic. Yes, we had to push it back a little bit, but we are now full steam ahead, and we've looked at plans for different types of lockdowns and tier whatevers, and we are confident that everything is on track and everything will happen, which is amazing. We wouldn't have chosen to do it in the pandemic, but we are doing it in a pandemic. As Dave said, the uptake has been really good. In fact, I would say a drop-off over time of food waste is good, because it means people are wasting less food. And yes, we do use it it's a zero waste facility, the anaerobic digester. It gets turned into electricity and fertilizer. But of the 3 R's, recycle is the last one, and the first one is to reduce the amount of waste that you produce. So if using the food waste service makes people more aware of how much food they're throwing away, and that helps them to plan their food purchasing and use a bit better, brilliant. We'll be happy with that. One of the things I wanted to talk about is, and Dave touched on it, which is the 140 litre bins and reducing the size of the bins. We've had actually very little pushback and concern from people. We have had some people get in contact with us with concern about this, but not as much as I expected. I think we all know that we shouldn't be sending stuff to landfill. Hopefully people have seen the waste survey that we've done that shows that for the standard household, only 33% of what's in the grey bin is genuine landfill waste. 41% is food waste, and the rest of it is things that could have been recycled, like glass, textiles, wood, things like that. It's very doable. I'm lucky enough that I'm in an early adopter area, and I have a household of 6, and we have a 140 litre bin, and we're fine. But there are going to be some households that won't be able to manage the 140 litre bin. And so I do encourage people who are concerned, who maybe already have excess waste capacity, to please get in touch with officers. Look at the information on how to apply for excess capacity or who to get in contact with is on the literature that comes out. Do get in touch. Certain households will automatically get extra capacity. For example, if you've got children in disposable nappies, you'll be given a couple of years worth of sacks to put one out alongside each of your residual bin, your grey bin collections. And if you have particularly large households and so on, if you don't appear like you should need extra waste capacity, what will happen is you'll get a bin audit. So an officer will come out, look at your waste capacity, look at what you're producing, and if you're sorting your waste correctly and you're maxing out your other capacity, so you can, every household is entitled to 2 recycling bins, 2 food waste bins. If you want an extra recycling bin or food waste bin, that will automatically be delivered to you at no cost and will be collected. I've used 2 recycling bins. We only need 1 food waste bin, thankfully. But the officer will come out, and if the conclusion of the audit is that you need more residual waste capacity than standard, you will end up with more residual waste capacity than standard. So it's really important that people do engage with that. Hopefully the members of the committee have had a look at page 125, and you can see the sort of learning outcomes that we've got through doing this early adopters trial. And some of the things that we didn't expect to find out, like, for example, we delivered the food waste bins and caddies to people's front doorsteps because we thought that would give more of a sense of ownership and make sure they spotted them. And that meant that some households then presented them for collection at their doorsteps because that's where they had received them. So for the main rollout, we won't be doing that. We'll be putting them where people would normally put their bins because we introduced some confusion that we didn't expect to introduce. And the other thing that I would highlight when you're looking at the report and you're looking at those results is that of those 5 early adopter areas, so we had the comparator area, which is sometimes labelled Caversham, sometimes labelled Thames, it's actually in Thames Ward. And then you have 4 other areas, 2 of which were operationally challenging. One because it had a lot of alleys, one because it's got a lot of low-level flats, and 2 of which had quite a transient population, high levels of HMOs, a lot of students. And so there it's more about the challenges of communicating to people how they're supposed to manage their waste. Though each of those 5 rounds doesn't represent 20% of the borough, most of the borough we expect to respond like the Thames Caversham ward. So when you're looking at those, I mean, the uptake is good in all of them, if I'm honest, but it is better in the Thames and Caversham ward than a couple of others. And that's what we're expecting to see across the board. And especially if you look at the number of contacts and the number of concerns that we've had from the different areas. So it is all looking really good. I'm very excited about it. I think the most common comment I get from people is that they wish they were an early adopter and they want the service to come in. But it is, if we get the word out, if you're having concerns about your capacity, if you're worried that you're going to not be able to manage that smaller bins, please get in touch with the council and someone will come back to you and either arrange automatic capacity or come out and do an audit and try and support you to make sure you've got the right amount of waste capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. That's thank you, Councillor Barnett-Ward. That report was not rubbish at all. Okay, I have Councillor Lovelock wants to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for this report. I mean, it's really encouraging, and Norcott Ward has an early adopters area in it, and I'm really proud of the fact that they've managed to increase the amount that they've been recycling via the food waste, far in excess of what was expected. And although there were one or two little glitches, as you'd expect on the rollout, officers responded very quickly to people and managed to go out and either talk to them or get a bin delivered where it had been missed or whatever. So thank you for that. I got my calendar today through the post, which I think to pick up on an earlier point, people really do appreciate having that calendar. And it's okay, you can go online, you can do all of that to find out when your bin day is if you've forgotten. But actually having it on the fridge with a magnet is just a big reminder as well every week to remember to put your bins out on time. So I think it's been a good experiment, and I look forward to everyone else joining in. So well done, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lovelock. Councillor Ennis?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I would agree with that, what Councillor Lovelock said in the report. I think as someone who represents an area that's been early adopted, I think it's been really smooth, but we have to say at the moment, of course. And one of the reasons why I think it's been successful in many parts. I can only talk obviously about the area which is indicated as Minster, but it is in fact Southcote, is that the work of the officers have been on the ground, talking to residents, meeting. I attended a very socially distanced meeting some while ago with concerned residents, particularly on the issue about the bins being smaller, because I think it's fair enough that residents don't want smaller bins, they want bins that they think they can fit all their rubbish. That's a natural phenomenon, and I think they were reassured, and it's gone really well. I think the big challenge will be flats. I can remember the red bins, going to the red bins, and that there were issues in the flats, and I think it's good to take a long, hard look, learn lessons, because I think that's crucial to our recycling rates and helpful for tenants, because many tenants in flats want to recycle, and sometimes the structure is difficult for them to do that, and that's why I very much welcome it. I think it will be great if we could have a look at that and learn lessons from the past and learn lessons from the current situation to put into place in the blocks of flats, which could have a really good transformational changes for the way rubbish is collected in blocks and help limit the opportunities of rodents. So very much welcome this report, and thank you to officers, thank you, Dale, that they've worked hard to make this a success up to now.
A very good point on the flats, very important point there, Councillor Ennis, thank you. Councillor Rowland.
Right, Chair, thanks. This has been a really, really wonderful initiative, and the fact that we are recycling food and the fact that we are reducing our landfill is just, it's really exciting stuff. And I'm delighted, and I hope that everyone in the town will welcome this program and know that each of them are doing something for the environment. I happen to live in the Abbey area and represent the Abbey area, which was chosen as an early adopter because it was supposedly a more difficult or challenging area as far as with having HMOs and a high turnover. And we've learned a lot of really good lessons off of it. And yeah, there's some problems, there's some issues and everything, but it has overall been really, really successful. And I think the thing I want to point out is how great the numbers are from Abbey Ward, and where our target tonnage for our food recycling is 0.86, and we've gone up every single week, which means we're getting more people, we're getting the message out to more people, and officers are working very hard to ensure that that happens. And we see more and more food bins out all the time. So I think it's been a really great initiative. I commend officers. They worked really, really hard on this. and I look forward to it happening, in the spring, with the big wide rollout, and seeing those numbers improve in terms of food recycling, and also the numbers go down for our landfill, because these are all really great initiatives that our Climate Emergency Partnership has all promoted. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, that's the important thing, isn't it? That the landfill is reduced, and also reducing the emissions of the greenhouse gases from food waste as it goes into the ground is an incredibly important point. Okay, so does anyone else want to come in on that at all? If not, can I ask if there's anyone who doesn't want to agree the recommended action at 2.1 in the report?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Are you agreeing to not to agree, or?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay.
Very good initiative.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll now move on to a very important topic indeed, which is item 12, fire safety in tall buildings. So this report updates us on the council's response following the Grenfell Tower fire in Kensington in June 2017, including action taken in relation to the authority's own housing stock and privately owned high-rise residential blocks within the borough boundaries. As people who've attended this committee will know, we've kept a very close eye, or since 2017, on what's been going on in relation to fire safety in tall buildings following the Grenfell Tower fire. So this is another update for us. I'll now ask Yasmin Ahmad to introduce the report, please.
Thank you, Chair, very much. As you've already said, this is an update report over the last year as to what's been going on in terms of both our own council stock and privately owned high-rise residential buildings within the borough. So in terms of the council stock, following on from the review by Fire Skills, officers have been working to complete or to implement the recommendations from that report. I can advise that sprinkler systems in the flats and communal areas in the 3 Coley high-rise blocks are nearing completion. The new fire alarm system is in the flats and communal areas, has been installed, and we're just waiting for completion of the water mains before going live with that. The cladding on those blocks is also being removed and replaced over the 2021-22 financial year. Upgrades of the alarm systems in other blocks is part of a 3-year programme, and that is on track. The sprinkler system in Lowfield Road and the three-storey Waits blocks is progressing. Some delay due to lockdown, obviously with the COVID pandemic, but looking to be completed in early part of the new year for those particular bits of work. And then the new build programme included the Conway Close, have fire safety at the heart of the work that's being done. Flats have been fitted with and will be fitted with upgraded fire doors, and each flat will be fitted with a sprinkler system also. So that's a bit of an update on the council housing stock. In terms of the private sector, as you'll recall from previous reports, there were 4 high-rise residential buildings in the private sector that were identified with the ACM cladding, which failed the required fire safety standards. Of those 4 blocks, I can advise that work has been completed on 2 of those buildings, so St Lawrence's House and Queen's Court. The 3rd building is Crossway Point. Work is on site there at the moment and due to complete fairly shortly. The 4th building is Hanover House. It's had planning permission and has submitted a building regulations application, so just waiting for the outcome of that, and then they'll arrange start dates for work for that particular building. In addition to which, the council has responded to the MHCLG requirement in July 2019 to complete a data collection exercise to identify external wall material and insulation on all high-rise residential buildings 18 metres and over. So these are non-ACM cladding, but other high-rise, other material used on other high-rise buildings within the borough. Approximately 97 high-rise residential buildings have been identified in Reading that are applicable to this request. To date, information has been received and uploaded to the MHCLG portal for 82 buildings, leaving 15 buildings outstanding. The delays in the main are due to delays for waiting for surveys to be done. This has been delayed further, obviously, with the pandemic, but even prior to the pandemic, there was a good 3-month waiting time as surveyors across the country were in demand for this work to be completed. MHCLG have advised that the portal will remain open until October 2025 to allow for this data to be provided and uploaded. And obviously we continue to work closely with the Royal Berkshire Fire and Rescue Service in the work that we're doing. That's just an update on where we are over the last year.
Thank you. That's a really comprehensive update, and as usual, we're very grateful for you to bring that, Yasmin. Okay, Councillor Ennis, do you want to talk about this report?
Yeah, thanks ever so much, Chair, and thank you, Yasmin, to you and your team for the hard work you're doing to ensure that people in high rises in Reading are safe and kept safe. I really welcome this report and welcome others previously since the tragedy at Grenfell, which we all watched in horror and sadness at the loss of life, and following the public inquiry since as to how it happened and to ensure that it never happens again in any area of the country. And what I really welcome about these reports since Grenfell on safety is the work that's been done in Reading in an open and transparent manner in the public domain. And I think this, people might, I don't think they do actually, is the HNL, what's on the HNL. It's a public open committee which scrutinises, overviews and looks at major issues of importance such as fire safety in tall buildings. And that's why it's so important and a priority that the work we do on this committee and the reports we receive, open, clear, for everybody to see, to scrutinise, to have comment and to go forward to ensure that the work is being done. So I really do welcome this. Welcome the work as well the council are doing with the fire service, our own stock, but also with the private sector landlords to ensure any cladding that could be deemed as unsafe or unsure is removed in a timely manner. I think it's always good to start with our own stock. It's good to point fingers. It's great. Politicians do it all the time, pointing at others. What about yourselves? Well, let's start with ourselves first. Let's take responsibility for what we have control of, and that's our housing stock. And I am totally reassured as lead councillor from the off, from the out, from the off. I can't think of a word to make that, but from the start after post Grenfell, of the work that's been done. We have water sprinklers being fitted and nearly finalised. I've been down there to have a look at the work. It's retrofit. Not many councils can say that the sprinklers have been retrofitted. We're doing it on new buildings, which is the law, of course, or is the requirements, but this is retrofit. And it's our own money, it's the tenants' money, but it's our own money that we decided to ensure the total safety of the residents, tenants in the Wensley Road flats. The Wensley Road flats were deemed as safe from the outset because unlike Grenfell, there's 2 exits, 2 stairways, fire alarms and lights on the actual stairwells themselves. There was no cladding that was seen as similar to Grenfell or unsafe. So from the outset, reports that we've received previously and reports from Brett Dyson and the council to reassure us, and that's continuing to happen. New alarms being fitted and money's being spent, and we're bringing forward the work in Wensley Road to improve and renovate the blocks of all cladding to be removed and new safe things to be installed. And then the discussion about the 4 private sector which failed required safeties. I know in the report and previous reports that the fire service working with the private sector ensured there were safety measures put in place, and then there's a rundown. I won't do it because it's repeating what Yasmin said about some of the works already completed or about to be completed. So very much welcome that. Very much welcome the work ongoing to ensure that all an audit of all private sector buildings and housing association buildings are there to ensure further safety. So really welcome this report and further updates in the future, and would welcome the councillors, members to feel welcome to scrutinise, ask questions, and you know, use this opportunity to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor Ennis, for that. Yeah, it's excellent the way your portfolio and your officers have kept us updated on this committee regularly, and it's we're not letting this drop, are we? We're coming back to it time and time again. We're following it through, so that's fantastic news. Councillor Lovelock wants to say something about this.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And can I echo your recent remark about keeping up the pressure, because it's sometimes the case that something awful happens and everybody's horrified, and then things go quiet for a while and people stop talking about it. So I think it's really, really important that we keep up the pressure, keep up the reports, and thank you to officers for the work they're doing. I'm one of the council's representatives on the Fire Authority in Berkshire, and so we get regular updates there on the work. And I know that there's been a really good working relationship between the Fire Authority and local councils. And, you know, obviously it's particularly important with our own house in order, which I think we have done a good job here in Reading on doing that. But it's more challenging when it comes to privately owned premises. First of all, you've got to find out who the responsible people are, and it's quite often not the people living there, or even the people who let out flats and so on. It can often be somebody else that they need to track down, and it's very, very time intensive. And although they're doing absolutely all I think they can do, it is a drain on funding, and we obviously don't want this to just come down to funding, but I do think the government needs to recognise the extra pressure that there is on local authorities, and in particular the fire service, in getting on top of this issue. If we are to keep up the pressure and implement whatever comes out of the Grenfell inquiry, then it's going to need to be properly resourced and not done on a shoestring like local government and the fire authorities it seems to be expected to do on so many things. But I am pleased to say that even despite the pandemic, this remains a top priority for the Fire Authority and will continue to do so. But reports like this that reassure the public that this awful, awful tragedy is not being forgotten, and we are learning lessons is one that we've got to go on keeping on top of. So thank you for the report, and let's hope that there is some funding forthcoming to help the fire authorities and local authorities continue to deal with this.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Lovelock. Really important point there about funding. So if everybody's happy, let's move on to, unless anyone else wants to speak on this. If not, then we'll move to the recommended action on paragraph 2.1, which is basically to note the progress and to thank Yasmin. Oh, unless you want to come back in, Councillor Ennis, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm just waiting to be agreed.
Yeah, if everybody's comfortable with that, we'll just note that.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, well, that's all too soon. Once again, we've come to the end of the meeting. So that's all our business. Thank you very much for attending. And can I just single out Julie Quarmby for thanks for the way she's organised this and provided a help and support for the chair. It's the first time I've done this on Zoom or Teams, whatever we're using, and I can tell you it's a bit tricky. Or I did, but it would have been much trickier if she hadn't been helpful and supportive. So thank you, Julie. Okay, thanks everybody. Good night. Thanks to the officers for staying late. Thanks for the councillors and members of the public. Good night.
Holidays.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.